Hey, welcome to the free world. Today we're going to go over why Sharia law will never leave the Middle East. Now, this seems to be a big concern to a lot of people in the United States and Europe specifically right now, with all the mass amount of refugees that are now going into Germany. The current statistics say within the next decade they're going to have like a majority of Muslims. Now, I'm going to go over why this is probably not going to happen, and those statistics are probably wrong. Now, I'm saying these statistics are probably wrong because they don't take into account that in the Middle East, with the public education system, they're normally forced to follow the Quran. Now, in Europe, in the United States, we are more secular. We have a better separation of church and state. And this allows us to learn about different cultures and different religions around the world. But what this has also done is it's increased the amount of people that don't adhere to a specific religion. And because of this, when all these Muslim refugees go to different places, they're more likely to decide to not be religious, to decide to not follow the Muslim faith, or to become atheist, agnostic, or Buddhist, or something that is less involved with an Abrahamic religion or an ancient text. Because as you see, even here in America and most other countries, the more educated you are, the more likely you are to be an atheist or to be agnostic or to not adhere to a specific faith in that context. So that is why I don't think Sharia law will ever actually leave the Middle East. Now, it is possible that they may take more ground. One of these nations may conquer another state, although specifically I don't believe that they would get any big, huge piece of land just because of the military influence of the United States and the United Nations around the world. But it is possible that this may happen. But as I said before, like with education, the more educated people become and the larger infrastructure builds, the less likely that people will follow ancient religions that oftentimes have many contradictory statements within their texts and oftentimes put men above women, have silly traditions that don't really need to be followed. Now, I'm not saying that these books are all bad. There are certain bases of morality that can be found in pretty much any ancient text, and learning about the Quran and learning about the Bible is, something that people probably, it's an interesting concept to learn, and interesting things to learn out of it, and people should, but they shouldn't. They should take it with a grain of salt for some things, such as the mysticism of it all. Like, there's no proof that any of these things actually happen. Now, to believe that end times are coming and that Jesus Christ is going to come back and destroy like half the planet, and tribulations and judgment day are going to happen and everyone's going to be sent to heaven or hell, is just it's a slightly absurd to believe all these things, and to because it's contradictory to believe it. Now, if God would have came and said all these things, then he knows exactly what's going to happen. So in that context, we wouldn't have free will because he's already decided for us. But yet in the Bible, it says we have free will. There's many contradictory things within it, and I just think even if by the slight possibility that it is real, I don't think God would care if you believed in it or not, as long as you're a good person to other people. And I think more and more people are going to wake up to that fact, and they're not going to fight about the religion that they have, because there's no actual real point in doing so, as long as everyone is being good to each other and focusing on bettering themselves and bettering their community. And I think that's a big focus that we need to have as a planet, so we stop fighting about unnecessary things like who's Christian, who's Jewish, who's Muslim, and more focus on the fact that there's people in the world still starving to death and that need help, and how we're going to bring our planet back to a place where it needs to be, not just economically, but in a place where we're not destroying the planet anymore because of the pollution that we're throwing into the oceans, the acidification that's rotting away the coral reefs, the fact that we're our overpollution is not only hurting us, but it's hurting every species on the planet. Now, a lot of this, is a natural cyclic thing with climate change, but a lot of it is also man-made. But that's a completely different point for a completely different video. But my major point here is that once they leave those nations, they have more opportunities. There's less censorship. They have more abilities to read other books and different sources, and they're more likely to change their way of thinking. Now, this is also true for Christians, Jews, and everyone else. Like, if you're in a place where you're able to read more, if you're able to get a better education, you're more likely to consider yourself a conservative of any religion. You're more like, oh yeah, I might be Jewish, but that's just because I like to go to the synagogue. Or I might be Muslim, and that might just because I like to go to a mosque. I might be Christian, but that's just because I like to go to church. Now, and I like to hear the stories, and I like to take some parts of it and put it into my life. But I don't necessarily believe in every single part of it, because I know that not all of it is right. And I think that's the big part of like how humans are going to advance. And like I said, that's why I don't think Sharia law is going to go to the Middle East. This was a little bit long-winded, and I feel like I got a little bit off topic. But if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumbs down. See you all later.